Hello and welcome to another episode of the Robin Knits podcast. Today we are going to be talking about some textured sweaters that have been on my radar because I found some yarns that would work really well with textures. So if this is something you're interested in, I hope you hang around for a bit and let me give you company. I'm Rhoda and I am coming to you from a small town outside the Greater Toronto area. If you feel like I sound very practiced, it is because this is the third time I am recording this video. The last couple of times I had issues with either the mic or the file not being readable. I don't know what that is about, so I'm hoping this turns out okay. I was going through my yarn stash a couple of videos ago, you would have seen it, and I found a few yarns that would work really well with textured knits. At least that is my vision for as of now. So I have been going over patterns. This is something I want to cast on to somewhere in the middle of spring, maybe towards the end of March or sometime in April. So I do have time to think about it, but I think I've zeroed in on the bunch of patterns that I really want to cast on. So although there are a bunch of patterns, I can cast on only one or maybe at the most two. And so this has been a difficult decision for me. I am going to sleep on it quite a bit. But one of the reasons I wanted to make this video is also to ask your suggestions and opinions about what pattern would work right for what kind of yarn. With that being said, I think I'll start with showing the yarns first and then we will talk about the pattern. We will start with the lightweight yarns. This is a bunch of yarns I have. The colored yarns are from Surella. They are hand-dyed yarns and they are made of 80% merino wool and 20% bamboo. If you look at them, they are pretty drapey, and so this is going to make a wonderful summer garment. I have 3 skeins of this yarn. I don't know what I was thinking of when I purchased this, but I do know I wanted all of them to be in one sweater, one pullover, one cardigan, something, and so I want to stick to that plan and make sure all of them work together in one pattern. This is the main color I would be using. This is Knit Big Swish. It's in the sport weight and this is just an undyed colorway. So I'm hoping I could use all of these together in one pattern. The next yarn I have is Capra DK. You can see how bright this color is. The colorway is Holly Berry, and this is 85% merino, 15% cashmere yarn. This was a splurge, although it was not 100% cashmere yarn, and I think with even a little bit of cashmere somehow raises prices, and so this was a little bit of a splurge. I want to make this for my holiday sweater. And a textured sweater, this yarn and a textured sweater would go really well. The yarn looks very glowy and very bright on the camera. I'll see if I can put a picture of what it looks like in natural light, and you'll understand what I mean, what's the vision I have for that pattern. The next one is this yarn. There we go. This is from Quince & Co. Wimbrill. Quince & Co., the line of yarn is called Wimbrill. This is 100% Texas cotton yarn, and I have about 5 or 6 skeins of this. I got it on a sale. I was new to knitting, and I got it because the color looked really good. I did not go into what the specifics of the yarn was. I knew this was worsted weight though, and I started knitting with it. It's 100% cotton, so it's really tough to knit with it, and I have been putting it off for a while. But if I can find a pattern, especially something with a loose gauge that would make this yarn work, I'll be very happy to cast that on for summer and also as layering pieces for fall and winter. The last yarn I have is this yarn. This is Knit Picks Woodland Tweed. This has about 80% merino wool, 15% baby alpaca, and 5% viscose, which I think are the tweedy bits. Now this is in the colorway Spotted Owl. This is a wonderful yarn. It's very soft and very squishy, and again, I feel this I find the color to be a little boring. It was very different from what I thought it would be, and I think a texture would elevate this yarn. It's very round and plump, so I know it's going to do well with textures. So that's about the yarns. With the patterns themselves, I am looking for something that has more of knits and pearls. I don't mind cables and lace, but I want them to be very minimal, if any, in the pattern. So those were my basic criteria when selecting patterns. Now, based on the yarns I have not looked at patterns that are fingering weight. I've just started from sport weight and gone all the way up to Aran weight. So you might not see fingering weight patterns. This is not a curated pattern. This is not a bunch of patterns that I just looked at on Ravelry and just line them up. These are patterns that I am personally interested in based on the yarns that I have. So I'm really sorry if you don't find patterns that match the kind of yarn that you have. All of the patterns are going to be linked below, and I will also create a Ravelry bundle where you can find them all in one place. As I'm talking about the patterns, you will see the pictures and the specifics of the pattern pop up over here, which is why I have scooted to one side of the screen. This is also a new place that I am recording at, a new location in the house, new spot, and it's because the light seems to work perfectly well here right now, and I'm hoping to get this done before the sun goes down. It is the end of my work day, which is why I'm all dressed and I am a little tired, so I might go a little fast. I'm going to try my best not to, but if I do, I would suggest you either slow down the pace on your YouTube video, or if you find me too slow, you can also increase the pace on your YouTube settings, and it's going to be more pleasant for you to follow along. The first pattern I have is simply called the texture pattern. This is an Isayor pattern. It is written by Helga Isayor, and the yarns they've used are, of course, Isayor yarns. There are two options that they have offered. One is Isayor Jensen held together with Isayor mohair, and the other option is Jensen with alpaca 1. This is, however, knit on a very loose gauge. The needle size is 4.5 to 5 millimeter needles. The sweater is amazing. I like that it has textures all over. It is simple diamond kind of textures, lattice, and it's just knits and pearls. This pattern immediately caught my attention just because of the fit, of how it looks on the model, and just the overall look of the pattern itself. The pattern comes in about 6 different sizes. It starts at 112 centimeters and goes up to 155 centimeters. In inches, it's 44 inches to 61 inches. The size jump between each size is pretty high, and it's because the pattern repeat is about a 12 stitch repeat, and so the size jump between one size to another is wide as well, because they had to accommodate for that pattern repeat. With the size range, I don't find it to be, at least they could have included at least one size on the higher side, but even for smaller sizes, I feel 112 centimeters is pretty oversized, but that again is based on your preference. This pattern is, however, a little challenging because it is knit bottom up, and then it's separated at the underarms for the front and back, and there are short rows shaped on the shoulders as well, and this is along with the textures. The short rows for the texture look more ribbed. There is a zigzag pattern right at the top where the textures end and the ribbing start on the shoulder, and that was a very interesting feature on this pattern as well. I am moving on to DK weight sweaters, and that would be this yarn. This yarn I feel would go anywhere from sport weight all the way until I think at least 5 millimeter needles. I have used this yarn before, and it blooms really well. So this is the yarn I'm considering for all of the DK weight patterns. The next bunch of patterns are all from the same designer. Her name is Lene Holmes Samzo, and so just off the bat, the sizing for all of these patterns is a little different from what I am used to. It does not say 1 to 3 like you would see in most knitting patterns, or even ABC. It says double XS, and then it gets more complicated because for a few sizes it has it's either small or medium, so it says S/M or M/large. It gets a little confusing. I guess if you buy the pattern, download it, look at the sizes and the finished measurements, you would have a better idea of what size to pick, but when I'm looking at it on Ravelry, it is pretty confusing. The first sweater I want to talk about, one that caught my attention, is the terracotta sweater. It's beautiful. This is one of the ultimate sweaters. If I if I had another yarn to go with this, I would definitely have made that sweater. But that has also got me to thinking if I should buy a second yarn to knit this one. And why do I need a second yarn? It's because it has color work and textures in the same pattern. I really like how the color work and the textures play out. It's not flashy, it's very subtle, and the color work and the textures go together really well. They don't seem mismatched, is what I'm trying to say. It says, when you look at the pattern page, it says it's fingering weight pattern, but actually it's a DK weight pattern. It's knit with the fingering weight yarn, which is Sandnes Garn Tin Pure Gint, and it's held with Sandnes Garn Silk Mohair. The needle size used is 4mm needles. This comes in about 7 sizes. It starts from 98 centimeters, goes all the way up to 164 centimeters, and 38.5 inches to 64.5 inches. This is a top-down sweater. It has drop shoulders, so we will have to knit flat until the armholes, until the underarm at least, and the color work is knit flat, so that would be a new technique I would learn if I ever make this sweater. The shaping is done on the color work as well, so that is another additional technique. And overall, I really like this sweater. Even if these yarns do not work, if I can find other yarns that work for this sweater, this is something that's pretty tempting and is on my radar for sure. The next one is the Peggy sweater by the same designer, and this is knit with Sandnes Garn Sunday and held with Sandnes Garn Tin Silk Mohair. The needle size used for this pattern is 4mm. Again, it comes in 5 sizes. It starts at 109 centimeters and goes up to 138 centimeters. It's not as size inclusive as the last pattern, and in inches it is 43 inches to 54.5 inches. This is again a drop shoulder. It has a very boxy fit. The pattern is charted, and the texture is just made out of knits, pearls, and I can see baubles in between, but otherwise it is a pretty interesting pattern. This pattern does not mention if it is knit top down or bottom up, so that is up in the air. I think buying the pattern would be the solution. The next one is the Porcelain Damask sweater. This is the sister pattern of the famous porcelain sweater, except all of the color work is in textures. This is knit in Sandnes Garn Sunday along with Sandnes Garn Tin Silk Mohair and on 4mm needles again. It has 5 sizes. It starts from 91 centimeters, goes up to 149 centimeters, and 35.75 inches to 58.75 inches. This is again worked top down. Good, it's mentioned, and it's simpler. It has charts for the texture, which is again a wonderful thing, and it's a drop shoulder boxy fit kind of silhouette. The next pattern is a pretty interesting pattern. One of the reasons I was a little hesitant to include this is because of the limited size range, but I found the pattern very intriguing and decided to put it in anyways. This is my zigzag jumper by Nordgaard Knitters, and this is knit with DK weight yarn. The yarn is Zaire Alpaca 3, and it's knit on 6mm needles. This yarn is, however, a chain-knit yarn, and with chain-knit yarns you can knit on really small needles or go up to larger needles, and the chances of pilling are a little lesser than using regular yarn. It comes in 4 sizes. It starts from 116 centimeters and goes up to 134 centimeters. In inches, it is 45 to 52.5 inches. What I really like about this sweater is the collar. If you look at the collar, the sweater construction actually starts from the collar. You knit the collar. I don't know how they do it because you're supposed to knit the collar in the round, but the rest of the sweater until you reach the underarms, it's actually knit flat. And the stitches for the sleeves are later picked up and the sleeves are knit at the end. It is a wonderful oversized sweater, and the texture, the zigzag, does not start right away, which is another interesting thing. It starts somewhere in between the shoulder and the bust region, and I found that very, very fascinating. Even though it's oversized, the sleeves seem a little narrow, and that gives a different kind of structure to the sweater. Overall, it seems very well balanced. The next sweater is the Field Sweater by Camilla Vad. This was something that popped up on my feed quite a lot last year. There were sweaters that people knit using a single color. There were some sweaters that were two-toned, and this definitely caught my attention. This is again knit on 4mm needles, and the yarn used is the Eco Baby. The sweater comes in 9 sizes. It starts at 94 centimeters, goes all the way up to 142 centimeters, or it starts at 37 inches and goes all the way up to 56 inches. The pattern again is pretty balanced, like the previous pattern I was talking about, in the sense that it is feminine. It has all of those lovely grain patterns on the yoke coming down from the collar. It's beautiful, but I like that it is structured. The pattern does not go all over, but if you look at the shoulders, even though it's a round yoke, it feels like a very well fit sweater, and that caught my attention. All of the edges, the neck ribbing, the sleeve cuffs, and the bottom ribbing are all finished with twisted ribs. The next sweater is called the Rest Day Sweater. It is by Lizzie Hester. It is made using DK weight yarn with 4mm needles. The yarns used are Filcolona Pernilla, and it is held with Drops Kids Silk Mohair. It comes in 12 sizes. It starts at 75 centimeters, goes up to 160 centimeters, or 30 inches, and it goes up to 64 inches. This is a raglan sweater. It has mock neck, and it is knit top down, which is absolutely okay, because if you look at the sweater, I am looking at making modifications. The best thing about the sweater is the textures is just the pearl bumps before and after the collar bands, and the modification I would make is start the collar bands right on top instead of waiting for it to start from under the arms, and do the textures from right on top as well. This would be a good piece to use my Surala yarns with the Stroll yarn from Knitfix, and I could put them all into this sweater, and it's going to be a very, very nice outfit. Rest day simply means leftovers. No, I did not go looking for the meaning, but it was very graciously added in the Ravelry page, and it helped me learn something about the sweater. So this is a nice sweater if you want to make, if you have just enough leftover yarns to make that one band. And the color that the designer has put together is lovely. It's this nice autumn color, would go very well with the fall season. And if I have yarns left with those colors and I don't end up making this with the yarns that I'm thinking of, I will definitely make this in similar color palette that's shown over here. The sweater has split hems, which is again a very nice finishing, and would go really well on dresses or act as a very nice crop top. The next pattern is Checker Plate, and this is by Lily Kate Franz. I have been hearing so much about the pattern in the last few weeks, and I've had this eye on the pattern ever since it came out. I'm glad it's gaining popularity because Lily Kate Franz is a very nice designer that I have tested for before, and when designers are genuinely very nice and you deal with them one-on-one, you have a special place for their patterns, and that's what this sweater has done for me. This is knit on size 4.5mm needle. She's used a yarn that I am quite unfamiliar with. It's La Madrelana, and it's the DK weight yarn. It comes in 9 sizes. It starts at 71 centimeters, goes all the way up to 157 centimeters, or 28 inches to 62 inches. If you look at the sweater, what I like the most is the collar. Although this is supposed to be about textures, I like that the collar does not start right at the top, but it's at a very nice place where it does not feel like my neck is disappearing. And of course, we can always modify collar sizes, but I really like how this collar looks. This is a top-down pattern, and it is a raglan pattern. So if I want to make any modifications, it would be easy, although I don't see any need to make a modification with this sweater. I like that it has textures all over, and the textures are not very distracting. They are very neat, very repetitive, and I would be looking forward to knitting this, just getting a hang of what I should do next. And with it being a raglan and not having the wrong side to work on, it is going to be a very wonderful knit. We will move on to worsted weight patterns. For this, I'm considering both the Wimbrel and the Woodland Tweed yarn. Like I said, the Woodland Tweed can work on 5mm needles and go up really high. So those are the two yarns I'm considering for the worsted weight patterns. The first pattern is Zopf. I don't know if I'm saying it right. It is by Midori Hirose and it is knit on 6mm needles, which means it is a little bit of a loose gauge. And the yarn used is Merino Nachogan. Again, I don't know if I'm saying it right. This comes in only 3 sizes though. It starts at 127 centimeters and goes up to 157 centimeters or 50 inches to 61.75 inches. I do see that the size range for the higher sizes are good, but that includes a lot of positive ease and there isn't much for sizes in the lower range. So this is a pattern you'll want to think of before purchasing. Zopf simply means braid, and there are braided breads in Germany also called as Zopf. This is something I learned on Ravelry again. This is a project that's knit top down. The funnel neck is amazing. I like how the entire pattern looks so open gauged, and what grabbed my attention apart from the collar was the very subtle cables that run down the sleeves of this sweater. This sweater also comes with video tutorials, which is a wonderful thing. For someone like me who is advanced beginner is what I might call myself, a video tutorial is definitely going to be helpful. Oksa is the next one. This is by Caitlin Hunter, and right off the bat I like that this sweater has textures and it's on the yoke. It's just like color work, but it's just on the yoke and the rest of the sweater is stockinette. I really like the neck of this sweater. I like that it's not up. It gives it a more casual blouse-like look, and this would go wonderful with skirts or just to throw them on top of dresses. The yarn used for this sweater is Woolfolk Far, and the needle size is 4.5mm needles. It comes in 10 sizes, starts at 81.5 centimeters and goes up to 172.5 centimeters or 32 inches and goes up to 68 inches. The texture of this sweater has everything you could possibly ask for. It has a few cables, it has knits, it has pearls, it has slipped stitches, and this is going to be a very interesting knit. And at least the yoke part is something that is definitely not going to be a TV knit. You would have to be 100% engaged to finish the yoke part of the sweater, but the rest of the sweater is going to be a breeze and you're going to have a lovely finished object. There is a list of yarn substitutes available for the sweater, and I really appreciate when a designer does that, because even if the yarn you are using is not listed there, you can see what gauge, what similar gauges the other yarns give, and it's a good starting point. The last one in the worsted weight category is called Euphoric. This is by This Bird Knits, and this is knit on 5mm needles. The yarn used is Cedar House Yarns Old Growth Worsted. It comes in 9 sizes. It starts at 97.5 centimeters, goes up to 170.5 centimeters or 38.5 inches to 67.25 inches. This is worked top down. It has a round yoke. It has both color work and textures, except the color work is in the yoke part, like how most color work sweaters are, and the rest of the sweater has textures. I find that a little distracting, but the idea of having both color work and texture in the same project is going to scratch an itch that I usually have for both of them. If there was a modification I made for this sweater, I would make it entirely color work or entirely textured, but if there was somebody who enjoyed both of it in a single garment, I would be very happy to gift knit this for them, because it's going to satisfy that that need I have both to do the color work and the texture in my head, and it would give a finished object for somebody else. This pattern was published in the Pom Pom magazine, so it's not available for purchase as an individual pattern. You can, however, purchase it on an ebook, and it's available on Ravelry. The ebook has about 9 different patterns, and the entire ebook would cost you 21 Canadian dollars, which is absolutely fair for 9 patterns. So I would probably purchase that and knit as many as I can from there. The last pattern is an Aran weight pattern. It's simply called the Librarian, and this is by Scandier Knits. This is very similar to the first pattern we talked about, where it has diamond motifs, just knits and pearls. It's knit on 5.5mm needles, and the yarns used are Sandnes Garn Pure Gint or Dirium Natura Gilead. I am afraid half the pronunciations in this video are not great, and I apologize for that. I am going to put the names of the designers, the yarn, the weight, whatever I can. I am going to put it on the screen just to make it simple so people understand what I'm trying to say. This pattern comes in about 8 different sizes. It starts at 80 centimeters and goes up to 150 centimeters. And in inches, it is 31 inches to 59 inches. What I really like about this pattern is that it has satin sleeves, it has a contiguous shoulder, and what challenges me about this pattern is that it's knit bottom up and it's knit in the round. I have been recently liking contiguous construction. I find it to be more structured, and the satin sleeves just give a different shape, more structured. It makes me look more broad-shouldered, but also kind of leaner at the same time. I don't know how silhouettes work, but I've been liking that, and so this pattern drew my attention. But with it being knit bottom up, I am a little scared. The sleeves have a special feature. You have options to knit the regular sleeve or a puffed sleeve. If I was gift knitting this again for somebody and I knew they were very feminine, liked a little bit of flair, I would have definitely knit the puff sleeve for them. But if I'm knitting it for myself, I would pick the regular sleeve. It is knit with a lattice stitch pattern, so you do get cables without actually knitting the cables themselves. So this is another pattern that's on my radar. So those are a few patterns. I think there are 12 of them. I'm not very sure. These are the patterns I'm looking at for about 4 different yarn categories. I would be knitting only one pattern for myself with one kind of yarn. The others would be gift knits, at least from what I'm thinking of right now. So if you feel there are better patterns that match the yarns that I have shown, better patterns that you feel would suit the quality of yarns, or you have knit a pattern that has been amazing, wears really well, you like the design features, please let me know down in the comments below, and I'll be very happy to take your suggestions. If you hung out so far, I appreciate you being here, and feel free to like and subscribe just to be kept in the loop of what comes next. Thank you for being here, and happy knitting.